If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hi, this is Melanie Johnson. We are going to have some really special content for you today. If you're wondering, how do I get booked on podcasts? How do I make a podcast tour? How do I get on stages? Then you're in the right place. So we have Jacqueline Lapin with us today. She has booked people all over the country, 900 radio shows, podcasts. She's had many people that she's helped all over the world, TEDx events. So we're going to get a back end look to what her knowledge is to help you to cross that over. And really the end game is to how to sell more books and how to do that without selling salesy, but really the idea is to sell more books and to get on more stages. Thanks, Jackie, for coming.
Oh, I'm delighted just to be here, Melanie. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit how you got started helping people do this.
Well, it goes back to, I started as one of the first women sports writers in America. I went on to have one of the largest sports special events and cable TV PR agencies in the country. Wrote 2 books in personal growth. I was called to write. One was the best spiritual book of the year at the International New Age Trade Show. And when I got done with that, I realized that my heart lay with the people that were changing the world in positive ways. And so I rebranded my company as Conscious Media Relations, excuse me, and started just doing radio podcast tours, like where you said, where we introduce authors to 9,000 radio shows and podcasts with a minimum guarantee of 30 interviews. So we've been doing that for 12 years. And about 5 years ago, people came to me and said, can you book me for speaking gigs? And I said, I don't want to do that, but I know where they are. So why don't I tell you? And so we started a company called Speakertunity. And Speakertunity gives people the leads for all kinds of things: radio shows, podcasts, virtual summits, live and virtual speaking, TEDx's, virtual networking, all the different places where you can deliver your message, sell more books in an easy and perfect framework without having to do any of the research to find all those contacts. And then we give you training programs, and we do your speaker one sheets and all kinds of other things that make it easier for you to get booked on stages. So that's the chronology of how Speakertunity became, the ultimate speaker toolbox, how I became an expert on getting people on various stages. And of course, I'm a speaker myself. So that's just a little bit of a nutshell, the story of how this unfolded.
Well, that's really fascinating. And I love, I have so many authors that come to us and they don't want to have to do the hard work. So they can go to someone like you and do that. And it's coming up with that marketing plan and strategy. Why is it important to have a marketing plan? And, when should they start doing that in your opinion?
Oh, at least 6 months out, because there are certain things that you have to start planting really early because of, a lot of, if you're doing your publicity, for example, many of those publications, and especially in the magazine world, are 6 months to a year out. So you need to really start, you got to put your team together if you're going to do social media and you're not doing it yourself, and you have your publicist and, all of these elements. And then speaking, many of these speaking stages are looking 6 months to a year out for their speakers, especially on the conferences. So you really need to get started early. And there are some things that you can leave till a little bit later, but you have to have them in place. Like all of your tools need to be done. So, your speaker one sheet and your proposal letters and your radio TV pitch letters. So, you need that 6 month run up to get all that stuff done. So then you can press the button and start getting them into play.
Let's talk about some of the pitch letter, the speaker letters. A lot of people don't know what that is. What should be in that content?
So the first and foremost thing that I'm going to tell you is there is an approach to it for all of them that is similar. You are not telling the host or the booker how great you are and your credentials. That's number 2. So number 1 is, what problem do you solve for this audience, or what message are you delivering that's going to enhance the life of this audience, whether it's a memoir with a message or a business book or a personal growth book, whatever it might be, you need to really prepare the host for how you're going to transform the audience. Once you get that, then the rest of the stuff will fall into place. So for example, on your proposal letter, your initial, entree, maybe somebody referred you, or we have a common touch point, or I know that this, your audience is suffering from this product issue, and here's how I solve it. The next part of your letter is going to be all about your credentials. That is about what's a great part of, what you're bringing to the table and why you're the authority that you are. And the third part of that is, what are you delivering? Are you delivering what is the content of this presentation or the, interview that you're doing? And then what are the bullet points that are the takeaways that the audience are going to experience? So, in all that in your radio, TV pitch letter, or podcasts, all of them really have those three elements. They might just be different in different order.
And then when you're pitching, like you're saying, gosh, we've got all this humongous list that's amazing that you're giving people of all the places they can speak. And then they need to decide what's the right place for them. And you and I had talked about that, you got to know your audience. So walk us through that of how you decide and deciding who your audience is.
So the most important thing is, first of all, who's going to pay you for what you offer? Because frankly, you can go out and you can inspire people, but if you're trying to make a living, your book may not pay, give you a living, but whatever else you're offering is going to be, your book is the gateway to that. So you need to make sure that there is an audience out there that will pay for what you're offering. If not, you either need to retool that or rethink where you're headed. And then who is that audience? Define it and really make it niche. Because if you think that, oh, my book is for everybody, you're absolutely going to fail. Because if you don't focus in on a market that is your sweet spot, then in fact, you're going to waste a ton of money and time and effort to no avail. So, figure out who it is that you really serve, who aligns with you, whose story is your story, who can really benefit from your knowledge and expertise, and then hone in on that marketplace. And I want to also point out, there's one other thing, Melanie, that I didn't mention to you, that we are all also adding into the mix. You don't necessarily have to do all the outreach on your own with us. We now have a strategic partner that'll do all the outreach for you. So that makes it a lot easier. But you still need to have all these materials together because you're going to hand it off to them. So that part does not go away. The extra hours to do the outreach may in fact not be on your deck. That'll be on somebody else's deck.
Yeah, it's always nice if you can have somebody else doing that. But I think that's so important about knowing your audience, because so many times you just spray and pray and you're just glad to be on anybody's podcast or anywhere, but it's not really serving you in the long run. And you're taking your time, energy to do it. It's just like, you're just putting it out there, but it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. And you don't want to turn down an invitation that may not be directly but that's not who you're going to pursue. If you're going to pursue a podcast or a speaking engagement, it really needs to be in your sweet spot.
Yeah. And so let's go deeper into the podcast. How do I use the podcast or leverage it as a guest to increase my sales and interest in my book?
So that is really the crux of the matter. The first thing is, when you're on the show, you first want to give the host a great media kit. And the media kit is going to talk about, you want to give them an on-air introduction. And in that on-air introduction, that's the first time that the audience is going to hear about your book. And then you want to give them 20 questions that you want to be asked in the order that you want to be asked them, because that's a roadmap. And that's going to enable them to it's going to enable you to control the direction of the interview and the content that you want illuminated from the book, so that you can create a pre-taste, an appetite for the rest of the book. So those questions are going to be really important. And then when you're in the interview, you're going to be saying things like, well, in my book, or when I was writing this book, and you want to name the book on at least once, in the interview. And then at the end, a critical question is going to be, well, tell us a little, about more about you, or where you can get the book or something like that. So you're going to have multiple opportunities to talk about your book and when, where people can get it, and to create a desire for your book because you've been building the interest in the content. And, this interview shouldn't be all about just your book, because it can't be a commercial. It is subtle. You're going to be, weaving it in and out, and it's the content that's going to get people interested. It's maybe your story. It may be the value of the information you're offering. It could be the, just what great a storyteller that you are that gets people engaged. So those are just some of the ideas that will, drive the success of your book sales in your podcasts.
Yeah. And I think it's important not to be too salesy, like you say. It's really innate that you almost have to get it in your nervous system of how you can casually say, in my book. It doesn't sound like you're pushing it. And it's a new language that you have to learn while you're doing it. And there's other great tips too. I know, like, you can give your book away to the host. You can give it away to some people who are listening. So there's a lot of ways you can utilize that podcast, and to, send pieces out. If they give you the raw footage, you can use it on social media in a bunch of different places too.
And I want to make one point too. We all think this is a digital world, but truth be told, 90% of those podcast hosts are going to want a physical copy of your book. And, and in the podcast world, they actually read them. So you have to calculate a couple of things. One, how many books you anticipate. When we do a radio podcast, or we have our author send us 40 books, so you have to pre-order them, rather than just anticipate, oh, gee, I can send them from Amazon. Doesn't work like that. Have them in the house. It's easier to do it that way. Secondly, a few will take the PDF version of it. So make sure that's nice and cleaned up. And you have to calculate also, when you're booking your own interviews, there's a specific time lag, because you have to calculate the week that it takes it to get there in the mail. And if it's going from the US to Canada, it's longer. And then you have to calculate give them 2 weeks to actually read the book before you actually do the interview. So you need to figure that all in when you're setting those dates.
Here's another tip too. Most people really do love having the physical book, but if you want to send the digital copy instead of doing a PDF, which they have to download, and it's not as easy as your ebook, right? It's not on every device and all that. You can, if you've self-published, like what we do for our authors, you can lower the price to 99 cents, and then you can gift it. So you can buy as many gift links as you want. So it just costs you $1, and then you send them the link, and they know it's from you. It's not from spam. And then they have an ebook that they can read on any device, and it just costs you $1. So
and that brings me to another point too. A lot of times when you're doing a bestseller campaign, when you drop the price and you get a gazillion people in to do that, then that's another thing that you want to put on your proposal letter and on your media kit, that you got to Amazon #1 bestseller. So you want to promote that right we just did that yesterday with a client. She got it on Wednesday. We sent the pitch on Thursday, and we've already got her 30 interviews. But it really shows that your book is impressive when you can say that you're already an Amazon bestseller.
So I just want to clarify. So do you think it's important for an author to become a bestseller versus not? Should they take the time to do that marketing to do it? It makes a difference to getting interviews.
If you have a budget for it, I think it is always well worth doing. And, sometimes if you're doing it on a shoestring, it may be challenging, but if you've got the budget for it, it's always worth getting that extra little bump, because it shows that you're impressive. Now, something else that's really always impressive when you're putting together your media kit, and we put it on the bottom of the pitch letter in a box, is if you've got great testimonials from people who are instantly recognizable. Putting on testimonials from your clients and your friends, that doesn't do you any good when it comes to podcast hosts. But if they see other people that are really well known, they wake up and think, oh, wow, this person's traveling in big circles. They're respected by these big names, and that will help you get more podcast interviews too.
All right, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about email lists, growing your email list, and how that generates sales and why it's important to grow your list.
Well, certainly, that's something that we have always on the hunt to do. We participate in virtual summits. We participate in giveaways. And by the way, we have a product that gives you the upcoming ones every month called Speakertunity Summits. But by doing that, we are constantly bringing in a new flow of potential people to increase the number of opt-ins that we have. And some summits are minimum list size. And so the more opt-ins you have from giveaways and promotions, and when you're giving your free gift giveaway, and we'll talk about that in a second, more often you're going to be, in fact, growing that list so that you get on more summits. And so one of the key things is we advocate whenever our leaders and authors are doing their outreach, we say that they should have three things that they're actually promoting in an interview. I know that they say, well, give people just one action to take, but it doesn't work that way the way I look at it. Some people are going to buy your book. And some people may not buy your book, but you still have an opportunity to get them in your opt-in list. So you want to give them something free that's going to get them excited and want to have it from you, which means they're going to give you their email in exchange. So I actually have something very cool that we've been talking about, which is a free gift giveaway. I think that we're putting in your vault here, called 44 Ways to Seduce Your Next Client from Stages, Podcasts, Radio Shows, Virtual Summits, and Virtual Networking. And this gives you, if you just think it's an ebook, or perhaps just a free consultation that you give as a gift to get people in your opt-in list, you are way behind the times. We have 44 other different ways that are going to show you cool things that get people to want to opt in. So that's really critical. And the third thing that we tell our people is, obviously, you're going to have a podcast opportunity. Take advantage of it and presage what it is that you're also offering, any coaching programs, any e-courses, or all of those kinds of things. So literally, a lot of times in an interview, you're doing three things. You're promoting the book, you're promoting your free gift, and you're promoting whatever it comes after. So we encourage you to have all of that in place before you start a media tour to promote your book, so that you maximum exposure, because some people are going to take one, some people are going to take the other, and some people are going to take all of them. So take advantage of all of that.
I love that. So it's really know who your audience is, have all your media kits put together, and know what you're giving, know what you're selling and promoting, and what your offers are that you have. All right, let's go into the Amazon nuts and bolts of book reviews. Sometimes it's so hard to get book reviews, even from your book launch team. You're asking them, please give me a review. And, we always tell our authors to get at least 50, because 50 kind of changes the algorithms, and it's difficult. So what kind of tips do you have on authors to get reviews, which also helps book sales and give you more credibility, because they think, oh, wow, look at all the people who've bought this book and love this book?
Well, I think one of the things is, if people are interviewing you for interviews, invite them to also put something on Amazon. They're having to read the book anyway. I think that you can even offer a free gift for people to do an Amazon review for you. Put in a post in a review, and you get this. Just email me and I'll go take a look at it, see that it's there, and I'll send you whatever it might be. I think that you can obviously do a concerted campaign with everybody that you know. And that is certainly, valid. And you can also, if you do an Amazon bestseller campaign, you can, if you have access to those people that opted in for some reason because of, like a promotion that you're running, you can always go back to them and say, hey, you got the book, would you mind posting? So.
All right, so we're the future of publishing. What do you see the future of marketing for someone's book and doing really media type tours? Where do you see that going?
Well, I think that you really have to look at not just media, because I will tell you that, for example, television doesn't have the impact that it used to. People aren't buying the numbers of books off of TV. I remember my colleagues at Hay House telling me that they'd had 2 or 3 authors on the Today Show over the course of a couple of weeks, and they weren't selling books. So you can't depend on that. My feeling is you really need to get in front of audiences, and that is get out and go speaking. And today you can speak virtually, so you don't really need to do that in a room. You can be talking to meetings, venues, and associations that all have existing audiences already that are your target audiences. So I believe that if you have a campaign, you need to put speaking into that campaign. It's part of the marketing mix. And it is the fastest way to get people know, like, and trust you and want what you offer. So that is an important factor when you're out to do a campaign. I think that, a lot of times now you don't actually have to travel to a lot of the interviews that you used to. Many of the TVs, if you do get on TVs, are willing to take you on a Zoom format, which was not the case a couple of years ago. So that's really a benefit. And I think that, no matter what you're doing, you have to be aggressive. It's not all just going to show up at your doorstep. You're going to have to go take some steps to start making it happen. And it's all great when you get the residual that, that you didn't plan on, but you actually have to have a plan and make it work, whether it's now or whether it's going to be in the future. But there's going to be new media opportunities. For example, who knew that, a few years ago that that 60, 70% of podcasts are now video casts. And so you're on YouTube, or sometimes you're on Facebook Live, or sometimes you're on StreamYard, and these days people are getting really creative. On LinkedIn, this is the latest place that people are doing their shows. So you're going to have more visibility and more opportunities for visibility without ever leaving your home going forward in the future.
That makes it so much easier. All right. So we talked on speaking on stages. Let's talk about paid versus not paid. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think that, first of all, you shouldn't be a snob about just saying, I only want paid speaking gigs, unless you're really already at the top of the food chain. Many of those paid speaking engagements actually are going away because they find they can get people for nothing and without having to fly them in, et cetera, on Zoom. And they are not necessarily all going back to in-room, but there are many that are returning. So you need to, my belief is that you actually need to have 3 different options. Those, if somebody wants to pay you to show up, great. That's a wonderful option. Just keep in mind, a lot of times it doesn't give you an opportunity to get names and connect with people from an opt-in standpoint. It's 2, you should be able to enroll from the stage. And that is inviting people into a paid program that you create that they can take advantage of. And, in a room, you might be handing out a form, but online, you're giving them a link that they can go to enroll in your program. And 3, there are going to be some opportunities that are just going to say you cannot sell or, make an offer from the stage, but you can give away something free. And that's where you have your free gift offer. So any good speaker today is going to have all 3 of those in their in their bag. And yes, you may focus on a particular kind, like opportunities to enroll from the stage. That was actually the biggest sweet spot for most people today, because you can actually make a ton more money enrolling from the stage than you can from a paid engagement across the board. So let's just do the numbers. Let's say that you have a 1995 program, $2,000, and there's 30 people in the room, and you sell even a third of them. You're looking at, $20,000, where you might get paid 4, 5, 10, 5 to show up at a speaking engagement. Right. So, you have to your numbers, know your conversion rate, and realize that, this is an opportunity that's really golden for you.
You've been so generous with all of your content and information. Thanks so much. We'll see you. Thanks, Jackie.
It was delightful to be here, Melanie. Thank you for inviting me.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.